Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston, a congregation that welcomes you and extends a heartfelt and inclusive invitation to join us in meaningful worship and in service to the world. We greet each of you, those here with us in person and those who are joining us via our live stream. Thank you for joining us this morning. We hope you are having a blessed holiday season. Leading our singing this morning is Savannah Hexamer, who graduated from our youth program last year and now attends the Eastman School of Music. Please rise in body or spirit and join Savannah in singing number 347 in the Gray Hymnal, Gather the Spirit.
This morning's call to worship was written by the Reverend Sylvia L. Howell, Minister Emerita of First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church. We bid you welcome on this first Sunday of the new year. Like Janus, we gather with part of us looking backward and part of us looking forward. We gather on the edge of the new year, saddened by our losses, cherishing our joys, aware of our failures, mindful of days gone by. We gather on the cusp of the new year, eager to begin anew, hopeful for what lies ahead, promising to make changes, anticipating tomorrows and tomorrows. We invite you to join our celebration of life, knowing that life includes good and bad, endings and beginnings. We bid you welcome. Please join with me in the spirit that some call meditation and others name prayer. Breathe with me the breath of life. Inhale as we share this interwoven, intricate web of affinity. Exhale as we feel one another's presence. Breathe with me as we gather to do the holy work of kinship and support. Open your mind, open your heart. This morning I share the prayer As a New Year Begins by the Reverend Kate Lohr. Great Spirit of life, as a new year begins, we turn inward to reflect about the state of our lives. What lessons have we learned in the past year, and which new ones now call us forward? To whom do we still owe an apology or expression of thanks? And with whom must we draw fresh boundaries? As we pause from our regular rhythms of rush, 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 we open ourselves to new perspectives and possibilities. We give thanks for these moments and for the wisdom they afford us. May they help bring us together in the sacred dynamics of life so that we, as individuals and as members of this community, might reach our full potential. As we step across this threshold, let this new year be a year of greater awe and gratitude, of deeper kindness and acceptance, and more courageous acts of conviction. For a kinder, more equitable, and sustainable world is not only possible, she is on her way. And in the quietness of this sacred community, we can ever hear her breathing. May the congregation, absent in body, though present in spirit, say Amen. We pause now together to lift up that which sits heavy and light on our hearts. We've been asked to hold Elliot Mahoney in our prayers. I invite you now to say the name or bring to mind those you wish to be held by the loving embrace of this religious community. They are part of the great cloud of witness and memory, and we will, even if we do not know their names, hold them in our hearts. In this great cloud of witness and memory, amid this beloved community, we hear these names and hold them in our hearts. Let us remember the suffering and joy amid and among our community that we do not know. We pause in awe and wonder of the mystery that is life. In the spirit of love, in the spirit of hope, and in the spirit of compassion, I invite each of you to enter into a time of silent prayer, meditation, or reflection.
Each week, our morning offering is shared with an organization that shares our Unitarian Universalist values and through which we may live out our principles in the world. Today, through our shared offering to the Shape Community Center, we are helping to improve the quality of life of our neighbors of African descent through programs and activities. Shape Community Center was founded by the community in 1969 because Houston's civil rights movement needed a place that could give birth to the programs that would give meaning to their protests. Shape continues to lead the way toward justice, equal opportunity, and institution building throughout Houston, Texas, and the world. Today, Shape is fondly called the United Nations of the Hood for bringing together people of varied affiliations for the improvement of the community. Those in our sanctuary will find the instructions for text giving in the order of service, and those watching the live stream will see the instructions on the screen. Our regular Sunday morning offering collection invites us to weave a tapestry of love and action. We ask you to give generously, and offering will now be gratefully received.
I invite you to read with me the dedication of the offering found in your order of service. To the work of this church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Our first reading this morning is Appalachian Elegy by Bell Hooks, and I'll be reading sections 1 and 6. Hear them cry, the long dead, the long gone. Speak to us from beyond the grave. Guide us, that we may learn all the ways to hold tender this land. Hard, clay, direct. Rock upon rock, charred earth in time. Strong green growth will rise here, trees back to life, native flowers, pushing the fragrance of hope, the promise of resurrection. Listen, little sister, angels make their hope here in these hills. Follow me, I will guide you. Careful now, no trespass. I will guide you, word for word, mouth for mouth. All the holy ones embracing us, all our kin making home here. Renegade, marooned, lawless fugitives, grace these mountains. We have earth to bind us. The covenant between us can never be broken. Vows to live and let live. There ends the reading.
The second reading is Another Day by Gary Johnson. Another workday morning, 8 a.m., a pale mist in the air, an air of mystery. Will we persevere or must we fail and join the famous lost souls of history? Virginia Woolf, Bessie Smith, Maria Callas, Franz Kafka, Judy Garland, Henry Thoreau, Princess Diana alone in Kensington Palace, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and Marilyn Monroe. Elegant, beautiful, and tragic indeed, considering the grief they've been through. To comprehend a nectar requires sorest need, said Emily Dickinson. She's here too. But you and I have each other, love, so don't despair. Let's go outside and breathe the morning air.
We invite you to join us in singing verses 1 and 2 of hymn number 354, We Laugh, We Cry. Please rise in body or spirit.
The title of today's sermon is Transitions, Reimagining Time. This year in our sermons, we have striven to reimagine a series of concepts, from loss to gratitude to possibilities. We have just made the transition to a new year, and we in Houston seem to have transitioned from record-breaking warmth to chilly winter overnight. I didn't realize when I titled this sermon several weeks ago that Conrad and I would be spending this past week thinking a great deal about both time and transitions. You see, we took his dad back to the house where Conrad grew up in order to clean it out so it could be sold. You know, that's a significant transition if you've ever done anything similar or even moved from one house to another after many years. We thought about time not only because we boxed up photos from the last several decades, but because we found antimacassars from the 20s, Tupperware from the 50s, and kitchen gadgets from the 70s. The emotions inherent in such an activity were compounded by the loss of Conrad's mom, Patsy, a few years ago, and how everything in the house seemed to remind us of her. I originally titled this sermon because I knew it would focus on those who passed away this past year, those who had transitioned on to whatever lies ahead and had used their time while here well. Last week, I delved into themes suggested by a musical composed by someone we lost last year, Stephen Sondheim. It's a musical that reimagines time by setting up the exposition and conflicts in the 1880s in the first act, then providing the resolution 100 years later in the second act. In a staff meeting not long after beginning my ministry here, I learned of a tradition created by a beloved former minister. Grasping at any straw to make myself beloved as well, I thought I might revive the idea. So, on the first Sunday of each new year, I also remember various notables who transitioned from this life. I've learned by doing this that I will inevitably neglect to name a congregant's most mourned notable person, and they will tell me about it. But I suppose I'd rather apologize for omitting someone than for preaching way too long. I should begin by acknowledging all those who have died because of the pandemic. We began not long after the pandemic began doing a Sunday morning candle ritual, once a quarter to remember them. We did the most recent of these a little over a month ago. At that time, 777,000 people had died just in the United States. Today, that number stands at 824,000. In year-end tributes online and on TV to those who passed, those in the entertainment industry, sports world, and political sphere are often featured prominently. Those of you who, like I, fondly remember the Mary Tyler Moore Show will, of course, recall Lou, Murray, Phyllis, and Sue Ann Nivens. Ed Asner, Gavin MacLeod, Cloris Leachman, and Betty White all died this year. 21 years ago, I took one of my trips to New York. Before taking in yet another Broadway musical, I was lucky enough to snag a ticket to a taping of The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. I found out that they taped several celebrity interviews in one day and edited them one by one into the subsequent episodes. The most memorable interview, at least for me that day, was Betty White. This was over 20 years ago, and a decade had passed since she had played one of the several feisty women decidedly past middle age on The Golden Girls. What I most remember was that the audience went nuts when she was introduced. She seemed sincerely taken aback and appreciative by the outpouring of love. This, a woman whose career spanned 9 decades, since the infancy of television. She was a supporter and advocate for gay rights, and her work for animal welfare was legendary. She was among the first women to exert control in front of and behind the camera, and was the first woman to produce a sitcom. A 2018 documentary about her life called her the First Lady of Television. She received 8 Emmy Awards, 3 American Comedy Awards, 3 Screen Actors Guild Awards, and a Grammy Award. The consummate comedian and entertainer, she knew timing was everything. So she died just 2 days ago, just shy of her 100th birthday, in order to be mentioned in this sermon. She left us lots of quotes from both her books and many appearances, some wise, some saucy. Here's but one. Everyone needs a passion. That's what keeps life interesting. If you live without a passion, you can go through life without leaving any footprints. Those in the sports and political world are often the most passionate, and several have left behind their footprints. Hammerin' Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's long-standing MLB record for most career home runs, and longtime Dodger manager and Hall of Famer Tommy Lasorda both passed away. Hall of Fame NFL coach John Madden led the Oakland Raiders to 7 AFC titles and a Super Bowl championship in 1977. As an on-air commentator, he earned 16 Emmys over the course of 30 years. Colin Powell was the first African-American Secretary of State and also served as National Security Advisor and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Walter Mondale was 42nd Vice President of the United States and was the first from a major party to name a woman, Geraldine Ferraro, as his running mate when he ran for president in 1984. Another senator who ran for president, Robert Dole, also died this year. After losing the general election to Bill Clinton, he earned the ambiguous distinction of becoming the first unsuccessful major party nominee for both president and vice president. While these and many other politicians and entertainers have left indelible marks in our world, I'm going to focus a bit more on those who left behind writings and evidence of their social justice work. As Conrad and I went through his parents' collections, I was struck by how special the writing and inscriptions were. Conrad's aunt was concerned about finding a cookbook with recipes handwritten by her mother. We found notes inside of bowls telling of their origin, and in books telling of who should be given the book after Patsy's death. A box was filled with decades of greeting cards with handwritten notes to the family. We lost many beloved writers in 2021. Young readers and those who love having grown-ups read to them lost several favorites. The Very Hungry Caterpillar was first published in 1969 and has sold more than 50 million copies. Eric Carle was the author, designer, and illustrator. Dying just 18 days before her 105th birthday, Beverly Cleary was one of America's most successful authors, having 91 million copies of her books sold. She has been credited as one of the first authors of children's literature to feature emotional realism in the narratives of her characters. Some of her best-known characters are Ramona Quimby, Henry Huggins, and Ralph S. Mouse. Milo was a bored young boy who unexpectedly receives a magic toll booth that transports him to the kingdom of wisdom. which leads me to wonder, does anyone ever expectedly receive a magic toll booth? But I can no longer ask the author of The Phantom Toll Booth, Norton Juster, the academic and architect who died in March. Those of you who are playing sermon anecdote bingo know that I'm likely to tell stories about food or Kentucky or Broadway. So imagine if I could combine these in one story. Someone will surely shout bingo. There's an acclaimed and historic restaurant and guest house in Berea, Kentucky named Boone Tavern. It is, of course, named for early Kentucky explorer Daniel Boone and was built in 1909 to house guests of Berea College. In the 1930s, the restaurant was featured in Duncan Hines' Adventures in Good Eating guidebooks and established a reputation for fine Southern cooking. Berea is a work college whose students are required to work at least 10 hours per week at Boone Tavern or another college department or work area in exchange for receiving tuition-free college education. One of the notable graduates of Berea College was Theron Musser, pioneer of American theatrical lighting design. She won Tonys for Lighting Follies, A Chorus Line, and Dreamgirls. That should be bingo for someone. After teaching at Yale and Stanford in 2004, the acclaimed author Bell Hooks joined the faculty of Berea College. Born Gloria Jean Watkins, but borrowing the name Bell Hooks from her maternal great-grandmother, Hooks was not only an author and professor, but a feminist and social activist. I read a portion of her poem, Appalachian Elegy, earlier this morning. The focus of Hooks' writing was the intersectionality of race, capitalism, and gender, and what she described as their ability to produce and perpetuate systems of oppression and class domination. She published more than 30 books and numerous scholarly articles, appeared in documentary films, and participated in public lectures. Her work addressed race, class, gender, art, history, sexuality, mass media, and feminism. Bell Hooks passed away on December 15th of this year. A myriad of poets and authors passed away in 2021. Joan Didion won the National Book Award for Nonfiction and was a finalist for both the National Book Critics Circle Award and the Pulitzer Prize for autobiography for the year of magical thinking. She received a National Humanities Medal in 2012 when she was praised for devoting her life to noticing things other people strive not to see. Rice University graduate Larry McMurtry set his novels and screenplays in the Old West or contemporary Texas. Films adapted from his works earned 34 Oscar nominations and include Horsemen Pass By, The Last Picture Show, and Terms of Endearment. His 1985 novel, Lonesome Dove, won the Pulitzer Prize and was adapted into a television miniseries that earned 18 Emmy nominations. Anne Rice also lived in Texas and spent much of her youth in New Orleans, where many of her works were set. Her series of novels, The Vampire Chronicles, spawned 2 film adaptations, Interview with a Vampire and Queen of the Damned. After dropping out of college, she moved to San Francisco, where she studied creative writing and finished her degree. The North Beach neighborhood of San Francisco was where Lawrence Ferlinghetti founded the iconic City Lights bookstore. A few years later, he added a publishing house to create City Light's booksellers and publishers. He published many of the beat poets and was arrested for publishing Allen Ginsberg's Howl, resulting in a First Amendment trial in 1957, where Ferlinghetti was charged with publishing an obscene work and acquitted. He was not only a poet himself, best known for his second collection of poems, A Coney Island of the Mind. He was also a social activist and painter. He died at the age of 101. And from poetry as insurgent art, I am signaling you through the flames, he wrote. If you would be a poet, create works capable of answering the challenge of apocalyptic times, even if this meaning sounds apocalyptic. You are Whitman. You are Poe. You are Mark Twain. You are Emily Dickinson and Edna St. Vincent Millay. You are Neruda and Mayakovsky and Pasolini. And you are an American or a non-American. You can conquer the conquerors with words. A Facebook friend of mine, a man I met in Toastmasters years ago, posts articles and opinions that make it clear we aren't on the same political or theological wavelength. It's not unusual to see respectful shout-outs on his page to notable people who have passed away. American Bishop of the Episcopal Church John Shelby Spong died in September. My friend posted, I cannot in good conscience provide my normal honorific to a heretic who so damaged the church. Let us simply acknowledge his passing. Spong was a liberal Christian theologian, religion commentator, an author who called for a fundamental rethinking of Christian belief away from theism and traditional doctrines. So you can imagine how a traditionalist would find it difficult to appreciate his contributions. Spong railed against biblical literalism, atonement theology, and any one person or faith tradition claiming to be able to define God. But the vast majority of those on my Facebook feed were mourning his passing and the good, scholarly, and inspirational work that he shared. He had actually been a featured speaker at Ministers' Week at the seminary I attended while I was there. His non-traditional writings would lead some to find resonance with our Unitarian Universalist faith and many of our views. My friend's use of the word heretic, a word coming from the Greek word for to choose, might reinforce that opinion. While it was difficult to choose only one of his quotes to share, I found this one. The task of religion is not to turn us into proper believers. It is to deepen the personal within us, to embrace the power of life, to expand our consciousness in order that we might see things that eyes do not normally see. Another quote I found is, God's love is too great to be confined to any one side of a conflict or to any one religion. But that quote is from Desmond Tutu, South Africa's first black archbishop. The diminutive Anglican theologian earned a Nobel Peace Prize as a global campaigner for racial equality and human rights. His resolve to bring down the apartheid system through nonviolent means only hardened when a state of emergency brought sweeping powers to police and the military in the 1980s. When the anti-apartheid activist Nelson Mandela was released from prison after 27 years, eventually becoming his nation's first black president in 1994, Tutu was appointed to head the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, tasked with investigating the apartheid government's brutal history. At hearings in which torture and other atrocities were recounted, Tutu would openly weep. Going through the accumulated possessions collected by Conrad's parents over the years, I was forced to think about how important or unimportant things are. Much of what I decided to save was for its decorative value. There were several sports jackets of his father's that fit me and that I love, like this one, as well as some vintage neckties. At 94, he doesn't wear many sports jackets or neckties. Of course, we saved photos and many scrapbooks. But much we had little use for except to donate. It made me think about what was valuable were the stories the photos prompted us to tell, the inscriptions in cookbooks left to grandchildren, and the memories of the loving people we talked about. So many people who passed away this year left their mark and much love in this world. We don't even know the names of many of them. May we continue to tell their stories and remember them and the love they shared. I end with a quote from Bishop Desmond Tutu. Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world. Amen.
We invite you to join us in singing verses 3 and 4 of hymn number 354, We Laugh, We Cry. Please rise in body or spirit.
Fills us with
Please join me with the words written in your order of service for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our benediction is by the Archbishop Desmond Tutu. We are made for goodness. We are made for love. We are made for friendliness. We are made for togetherness. We are made for all of the beautiful things that you and I know. We are made to tell the world that there are no outsiders. All are welcome. Black, white, red, yellow, rich, poor, educated, not educated, male, female, gay, straight, all. We all belong to this family, this human family, God's family. Go in peace.
Thank you so much for watching our service today. We're glad you are part of our online community. We welcome people who are diverse in faith, ethnicity, history, as well as gender identity and sexual orientation. There are so many ways where you can get involved in our community, and one you can do right now is by clicking on like below or subscribing to our channel. Thanks for joining us.